Hello, welcome to another episode of Phil the Screams podcast. Today we will be talking about a movie called VelociPastor. I was scrolling through Amazon Prime Video, just seeing what movies I could see for free, and I stumbled upon this, and I've actually heard about it quite a bit. It's only an hour long, it was free, so I figured, hey, I've already watched Lamageddon, let's see if this one's better. This movie was thought of when college student Brandon Steer went to text the word Velociraptor and it auto-corrected into VelociPastor. He thought it was very funny, so he took that idea and kind of ran with it. They did a class project, and for that project he did a bunch of Grindhouse trailers, and VelociPastor was one of them. And he posted on YouTube, and it ended up getting 45,000 likes. Wait, no, check that. It was 45,000 views, not likes, but still, not bad numbers. He ended up finding an investor to give him $36,000 for the film's budget. VelociPastor only has a runtime of an hour and 15 minutes, so this movie does not really take itself seriously. You will know that as soon as you start watching this film. It starts with a pastor. He's walking out of the church. And as he does, he looks across the street and he sees his parents, and very hammy acting wise, he's like, "Mom, Dad," and he's like waving. And he's like way over the top when he's acting out this part. I mean, the guy who plays the lead actor, the guy who plays the character Doug Jones, he doesn't do a bad job, but I mean, like this scene in particular, he is just really over the top. Again, hamming it up. And then an explosion happens and kills his parents. But when the explosion happens, there's literally words written across the street that says, VFX, special effects, fire. So you don't actually see a fire and a car on fire. You literally just see nothing. You see a blank street. And then the words that are across the screen telling you that there should indeed be an explosion and fires happening at this moment. This is the kind of movie that we're getting into, which, if you didn't know by the title, I mean, come on. After his parents die, Doug Jones talks to his mentor, Father Stewart, and he's very upset. Of course, his parents just died. Father Stewart tells him that he needs to travel around a little bit, take a break. So Doug Jones goes to China, to which he stumbles upon an artifact, and he loses his balance, cuts his hand, and when he cuts his hand, that gives him the power to turn into a velociraptor. One of the first times he uses this power is he is walking on the street. He transforms into the velociraptor. While he's in velociraptor form, he comes across these thugs who are attacking a prostitute named Carol. And he does these thugs in. He eats them, kills them, and then there's this shot where Carol falls on the ground and she looks at the velociraptor, and he literally knocks a guy's head off, and it's playing like this kind of like love music, like she's in awe, and blood's just spraying out like a fountain, covering the velociraptor in blood, and she's covered in blood. Another just goofy moment. It's over the top. It's dark comedy. But the next morning, Doug Jones wakes up in Carol's bed. And he has no clue that he turned into a velociraptor. She has to let him know. They have this little conversation, but they kind of become the movie's couple. And I mean, I'll be honest, I like both of these characters. I like the guy who played Doug Jones. I like the girl who played Carol. I thought they both did a really good job with it. They weren't hamming it up too much. I know I said Doug Jones was really hamming it up with the parents, but overall, they did a decent job with what movie they are working in. The contrast between these two characters of Doug Jones and Carol, it's really funny. I mean, Carol, she goes through the hardships of having to deal with the pimp, Frankie the Mermaid. He hits her because she doesn't call him Frankie the Mermaid, and he's like, "Tell me my real name," and she says it. And then he's like, "Now, why is my name Frankie the Mermaid?" And she's like, "Because you're always swimming in bitches." And he's like, "That's right." And he's always just going on these tirades. But Doug Jones, he's struggling because now he's turning into a raptor all the time. A raptor that kills people. And even when they're having conversations, like she tells him that he killed these thugs and he could do it for the good of humanity. But then when she tells him that she's a prostitute, he's like, "Oh, the hand of a sinner." Um, I don't know. It's just kind of funny. He just got done killing people, and that's what he goes to. Doug Jones starts struggling balancing the responsibilities of a pastor and being an anti-hero as the Velociraptor man. Eventually, Doug Jones goes to the church. He goes to take confessions, which his mentor kind of sternly tells him, like, "You're late, you're never late, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Sorry, I'll go take confessions." And then Frankie the mermaid is the one taking confessions. And, Frankie's not really taking it seriously. Doug Jones is like, "Oh, child, please, I smell smoke. Please don't smoke in here." And you see the smoke, like, flowing into the confessional box. And Frankie the mermaid's like, "Oh, my life is lit. I'm always smoking. I can't help it." Doug Jones tries to remain calm, and he's like, "Oh, tell me some of your confessions, like in the last 4 days." And Frankie's like, "Oh, well, I took candy from a baby, then I threw it in a river to get rid of all the snitches. I kill people, I do drugs," and he's going on, and Doug Jones is just getting mad, but then Frankie kind of drops the bomb that he literally dropped a bomb off, which killed his parents, in which Doug Jones responds by killing Frankie the mermaid. I don't know how his mentor never found out about this, because it literally happens in the church, and he was literally just in the church, but I guess I can't really critically critique a movie of VelociPastor, so you move past it pretty quick. When his mentor, Father Stewart, does find out about his little secret, he does want an exorcism, but that doesn't really happen. And instead he brings in a guy to do a seance. And it's kind of funny because Doug Jones is just like, "Listen, sometimes you need a little evil to take care of the bigger evil." And Father Stewart's like, "Oh, that's nonsense." But then when he wants to get rid of this so-called demon, he brings in a guy to do a seance. And Father Stewart's like, "Well, sometimes it takes an evil to get rid of another evil." And Doug Jones is like, "That's what I just said." And Father Stewart's like, "No, no, no, it's not like that." It made me laugh. This movie actually does a little bit of character building for Father Stewart. We actually get to visit his past life in a flashback scene. And that flashback scene is he was in the Vietnam War, and it shows him walking. It's the same exact actor, who the actor's kind of older, but for this scene they just have a blonde wig on him to try to make him look younger. It's funny seeing him in it. And he has on this army helmet, and they got these guns, and he's trying to act younger, and he's with like his buddy in the war, and he's like, "Hey man, you need to name one of your children after me." And like Father Stewart's talking about some girl that he really liked, and he's like, "I want to start a family." And then his buddy's like, "Oh, when you start a family, man, I want you to have 5 children. No, 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 no. 8 children. No, no. 11 children. And I want you to spend at least 15 minutes a day with each one of them." And he's like doing this big inspirational speech. And he's like, "And of those children, I want you to name one of them after me, man. And when they ask you why they have that name, you tell them it was named after," and I forget his name, "so-and-so soldier who had never been shot." And then he gets shot and he dies. And Father Stewart immediately is really sad. It kind of flash forwards like a day maybe, and he's like writing a note to that guy's parents, like explaining to him that their son died, and is playing the sad music. But then he looks up, and the girl he was just talking about, she's in like the battlefield, and then she's like, "Oh, hey, Father Stewart," and he gets all happy, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing here?" And she runs towards him, and then she steps on a mine, and then she blows up. And then he kind of talks about, like, that's how he knew the seance guy. He's like, "Yeah, after that, I really didn't know which way to turn. So, I practice a little seance stuff with this guy, and that's how we know each other." I don't know. I legitimately laughed at the part. I thought it was funny. The main bad guys in this film, there is a group of ninjas, and Doug Jones is fighting all of these ninjas throughout this movie while he's hooking up with Carol and trying to figure things out. And I think the ninjas were tied to the church in a way. So, I mean, by the end of the film, Doug Jones denounces the church and he's kind of rolling solo to defeat all of the corrupt figures in the world. Eventually, Doug and Carol, they kind of have a moment to where Doug Jones isn't so don't touch me anymore. And I don't know if they technically do the deed, but they kind of like make out in their underwear and stuff. And they do all these different like camera cuts, and it has this music playing. And there's a couple of montages in this movie that actually aren't bad. Like, I kind of enjoyed the montages. And during this little love scene, there's like different lighting, and I swear there was like 20 shots during this scene that are just floating across. And I'm like, man, what? I don't know what's going on, but it's not bad. It's like a little funny, but it's kind of cool. I don't know. I'm digging it. After a few run-ins with the ninjas again, and one of the run-ins, literally Doug Jones and Carol like wake up in their underwear, and then they do a whole fight scene in the bedroom. Doug Jones does have a final confrontation with the ninja group, who they want to sell like this really strong cocaine. They're like, it's like 10 times stronger than the normal cocaine, and we're going to get it out to everyone. And this big diabolical plan that, of course, needs to be stopped by VelociPastor. But yeah, they ended up going there. One of the boss's right-hand man, he makes this announcement that he's actually Doug Jones's brother, and they fight it out, and Doug Jones has to kill his own brother. Carol also joins them. She wears like kind of this black outfit. She's whooping some ninjas also. But eventually, one of the Honcho ninjas comes out with a sword and slices her. And they do this scene to where it looks like she's dying. So Doug Jones gets all mad. He turns into the raptor. And you see the raptor in full form. Like, there's sometimes like you see his arms and hands in raptor form. But this time he's like, you see the full body. And honestly, it's goofy. You can tell it's a dude in a costume. But I mean, the ninjas are committed. They are doing a fight scene. And of course, he takes out all the ninjas. And then the final bad guy, he rips off his head and there's blood shooting everywhere. And then they put this little quote by Gandhi about, we need world peace. They do this right in the middle of while he's screaming, holding up the main bad guy's head with blood squirting everywhere. It's pretty funny. Eventually, at the end, Doug Jones goes by the hospital. A doctor walks out. And I kid you not, at the end of this movie, this doctor is in the scene for a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, but he completely stills the scene. He walks out kind of smirking, and he's like, yep, we just got done with the surgery. Fixed her all up. I think she'll be just fine. He sits down, and the headband thing that all doctors wear on their head, it slides down over his eyes, and he does not touch it. He leaves it there while he's talking. And then he pauses for a moment and lifts it up, still with a goofy grin. And then he's like, oh, I bet she'd like to see you. I bet she would really like to see you. And he gets out a cigarette and starts smoking it. I don't know, just a 2-minute scene. The actor killed it, whoever it was. So if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast, whoever the doctor was at the end of VelociPastor, very well done. I enjoyed your little moment. But yeah, Carol's alright. And then they kind of give a cliffhanger ending to where VelociPastor, Doug Jones, he's on a motorcycle. He's like, I got more people to save and more bad guys to kill. And then he kind of rides off into the sunset. And that's that. Overall, I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would. The last time I watched a movie like this was with Lamageddon. I did not like Lamageddon too much. I thought it was way too over the top. I will never watch Lamageddon again. This one, I thought it was pretty funny, and I kind of liked the little thing it had going for it. Will it win any awards? No. Is it a great film? No. Is it not? I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm just saying I had fun with it. So, I mean, if you like dumb movies, give this movie a shot. Why not? Again, it's an hour and 15 minutes. If you don't like it, it's only an hour and 15 minutes of your life spent up. So, yeah, give it a shot. That's my review for VelociPastor. If you are still listening, please give this video a like. That always helps out the podcast. It gets it out to other people. Feel free to subscribe to, be alerted of future episodes. And again, thank you so much for listening. Until next time.